Katie Brooks stood in the giant hall of the Galactic Forum. The building was made of crystal that sparkled like diamonds in the artificial light. Around her, hundreds of alien beings sat in floating chairs that moved without sound. She felt small, among them even though she was Earth's top diplomat. The Zephyrian delegate was speaking. His voice sounded like wind through metal pipes. Katie had heard this same speech 3 times before. The aliens were saying no to humanity again. No to their request for more ships. No to their right to build colonies on new worlds. No to everything humans wanted. Colonel Ryan Price sat next to Katie. His uniform was clean and pressed, but his face showed his anger. He had fought in the border wars and had scars to prove it. Now he had to sit quietly while aliens who had never seen battle told him his people were too dangerous to have a strong military. The Forum had 7 main species that made all the big decisions. The Zephyrians looked like tall birds with silver feathers. The Velkari were blob-like creatures that could change their shape. The Thraxians had thick skin like armor and 3 eyes. Each group thought they were better than humans. Katie remembered. When Earth first joined the Forum 20 years ago, humans were so excited to meet other intelligent life. They shared their technology freely. Human doctors helped cure alien diseases. Human engineers fixed broken space stations. Human farmers taught aliens how to grow food on dead planets. But the aliens saw humans differently. They thought humans were young and stupid. They called human technology primitive. They laughed when humans offered to help with difficult problems. The aliens took what humans gave them, then acted like it was not important. The Velkari Prime Minister was talking now. His voice bubbled like thick soup. He said humans were breeding too fast and taking up too much space. He said other species needed room to grow too. Katie wanted to remind him that humans had only 12 colony worlds while the Velkari had over 300. Then the Thraxian representative stood up. His 3 eyes looked down at the human section with disgust. He made a sound like grinding rocks and said humans were naturally violent. He pointed to the border wars as proof. He did not mention that humans had only fought to protect innocent civilians from space pirates. Katie felt her hands shake with anger. She had spent her whole career trying to build bridges between species. She had learned 6 alien languages. She had studied their cultures and traditions. She had even lived on alien worlds to understand them better. None of it mattered to them. The voting began. Each species had different ways of showing their choice. The Zephyrians made musical sounds. The Velkari changed colors. The Thraxians tapped their claws on metal plates. One by one, they all voted. The same way. No to human expansion. No to human ships. No to human rights. Far away from the Forum, Captain Lisa Grant floated in the control room of her ship. The New Horizon was humanity's newest exploration vessel. It was sleek and fast, built with the best technology Earth could make. Lisa and her crew had been mapping new star systems for 2 years. The ship's computer beeped with an incoming message. Lisa read it twice before she believed it. The Forum had voted to stop all human exploration beyond their current territory. Her mission was over. She had to bring her ship home immediately. Lisa looked out at the stars through the main window. Her crew had discovered 17 new worlds suitable for human life. They had found asteroid fields rich with rare metals. They had even made contact with 2 peaceful alien species that the Forum had never met. All of that work was now worthless. Dr. Alex Carter was working late in his laboratory on Luna when the news arrived. He was Earth's leading expert on alien technology. He had spent 15 years studying how different species built their machines. His research had helped improve human ships and weapons. Alex realized something that made his blood run cold. Human technology was not primitive like the aliens claimed. In many ways, it was more advanced. Humans had developed solutions to problems that other species could not solve. The aliens used human ideas but pretended they had thought of them first. The communication systems that connected the entire galaxy used human-designed amplifiers. The trading computers that managed billions of transactions every day ran on human-written software. Even the life support systems on alien space stations included human improvements. Back on Earth, President Jack Murphy sat in the Oval Office reading reports from the Forum. His advisors filled the room, all talking at once. Some wanted to fight the decision. Others wanted to negotiate. A few suggested accepting the restrictions and hoping for better treatment later. Murphy had been a soldier before becoming president. He understood that sometimes you had to make hard choices. The aliens had made their position clear. They did not want humans as equals. They wanted humans as junior partners at best or servants at worst. The president stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see people going about their normal lives. They trusted him to protect them and their future. The aliens were trying to trap humanity in a small corner of space. They wanted to control human growth and limit human potential. Murphy made his decision. He called his secretary and told her to prepare for a special announcement. Within an hour, every human in the galaxy would know that their government had chosen dignity over submission. That evening, Murphy appeared on every screen and communication device in human space. His message was simple and clear. Earth was leaving. The Galactic Forum. All human diplomats, traders, and military personnel would return home within 30 days. Humanity would chart its own course among the stars. The aliens had pushed too far. They were about to learn what humans could do when they stopped asking for permission and started taking action. The galaxy was about to discover that dismissing humanity was the biggest mistake they had ever made. The news of humanity's withdrawal spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the great trading centers of Zephyr Prime, alien merchants celebrated. They raised their drinks and made toasts about finally being free from human competition. The Valkyrie Consortium immediately moved to claim the mining operations that humans had abandoned on 3 asteroid belts. On the massive space station orbiting Thraxia, the local governor held a party. He told his guests that humans had finally learned their place. The younger species would no longer try to compete with their betters. Trade routes that humans had shared would now belong entirely to the established powers. But while the aliens celebrated, something else was happening. Dr. Alex Carter worked day and night in his laboratory on Luna. He led a team of 200 scientists and engineers in the biggest data collection project in human history. Every piece of technology that humans had contributed to galactic civilization was being carefully documented and withdrawn. Alex's team worked in secret. They accessed computer systems across the galaxy and quietly removed human-designed software. Patents that humans had filed were officially revoked. Research data that human scientists had shared was deleted from alien databases. Trade agreements were canceled, and technical specifications were wiped clean. The work was careful and thorough. Alex knew that the aliens had grown dependent on human innovations without realizing it. They thought human technology was simple, because humans made it look easy to use. They never bothered to understand how complex the systems really were. Commander Helen Foster stood on the bridge of the transport ship Carolina, watching the last group of human civilians board the vessel. She had spent the past month organizing the biggest evacuation in human history. Every human citizen, worker, diplomat, and soldier in forum space had to be brought home safely. Helen was proud of her logistics team. They had managed to move over 50,000 people without a single incident. More importantly, they had removed every piece of human-built equipment from shared facilities. Computer cores, communication arrays, power generators, and life support systems that contained human technology were all quietly taken away. The aliens barely noticed. They were too busy dividing up what they thought were the valuable parts of human holdings. Mining rights, trading posts, and manufacturing facilities changed hands quickly. The Zephyrians took control of the asteroid mines. The Valkyrie expanded their shipping lanes through former human territory. The Thraxians claimed several strategic military outposts. What the aliens did not realize was that humans had built more than they claimed credit for. Over 20 years of cooperation, human engineers had quietly improved countless systems throughout forum space. Power grids ran more efficiently because of human modifications. Computer networks processed data faster, thanks to human algorithms. Even basic life support systems included human safety improvements. Captain Tony Blake piloted his stealth ship through the dark spaces between star systems. His mission was classified at the highest levels. While the aliens celebrated humanity's conquer departure, Tony was establishing something new. Hidden monitoring stations were being placed in strategic locations throughout unexplored space. The stealth technology was purely human innovation. No alien species had developed anything like it. The ships could travel undetected through any known sensor network. Tony's team had spent 2 years perfecting the systems, knowing that one day humans might need to operate without alien knowledge. Each monitoring station was small but powerful. They could detect ship movements, monitor communications, and map resource deposits across vast areas of space. Within weeks of humanity's official departure, humans knew more about the galaxy's hidden regions than the Forum had learned in centuries. On Earth, President Murphy received daily reports about the withdrawal process. The numbers were staggering. Human contributions to galactic civilization were far greater than anyone had imagined. In 20 years, humans had become involved in nearly every major system and process that kept the Forum functioning. Dr. Rachel Wong worked with a team of economists to calculate the impact of humanity's departure. Their models showed that removing human expertise would cause serious problems throughout Forum space. Communication delays, power fluctuations, and processing slowdowns would cascade through interconnected systems. But Rachel's team also discovered something encouraging. The resources that humans had invested in Forum space were enormous. Mining equipment, manufacturing facilities, and infrastructure improvements represented trillions of credits in value. All of that wealth was now returning to human control. Captain Julie Stone commanded the last official human vessel in Forum space. The merchant ship Denver had been making regular supply runs to human outposts for 15 years. Now she was bringing home the final group of technical specialists who had been maintaining critical systems. Julie watched the massive Nexus station shrink in her view screen as the Denver pulled away. The station served as the central hub for galactic communications. Human engineers had redesigned its quantum amplification systems 3 years ago, improving efficiency by 40%. The aliens had praised the upgrade but never acknowledged who had made it possible. As the Denver crossed the boundary into independent space, Julie noticed something on her instruments. The first system failures were already beginning. Power fluctuations were appearing throughout the station's network. Communication delays were starting to affect long-distance transmissions. The cascade had begun. Behind them, the Nexus station's alien crew struggled to understand why their systems were becoming unstable. Error messages appeared in languages they could not read. Diagnostic programs failed to run properly. Backup systems that had never been needed before started showing warning signs. The station's chief engineer, a Zephyrian named Krill, stared at his control panels in confusion. Everything had been working perfectly the day before. Now half of his monitoring systems were offline and he could not figure out why. He tried to contact the human technical team for advice, then remembered they were gone. Similar problems were appearing throughout Forum space. Minor at first, easy to dismiss as temporary glitches. Space elevators moved a little slower. Cargo ships took longer to process their manifests. Manufacturing plants reported slight decreases in production efficiency. Communication networks experienced tiny delays that most users barely noticed. The alien leadership ignored these small issues. They were too busy celebrating their new freedoms and expanded territories. The Velkari had already begun mining operations in former human territory. The Zephyrians were rerouting trade through space that humans once controlled. Everything seemed to be going according to their plans. But in hidden locations throughout the galaxy, human monitoring stations recorded everything. They tracked ship movements, monitored communications, and watched as the first cracks appeared in the foundation of galactic civilization. The aliens had won the battle, but they were about to discover they had started a war they could not win. 6 months after the humans left, the first major crisis hit the Galactic Forum. The Nexus communication grid that connected thousands of worlds across the galaxy began failing in spectacular ways. Messages that should have taken seconds to travel between star systems now took hours or never arrived at all. On Zephyr Prime, the planetary governor tried to contact the mining operations in the Outer Rim. His message bounced between relay stations for 3 days before finally reaching its destination, By then, the miners had already made the decision he was trying to prevent. They had sold their entire mineral harvest to independent traders instead of waiting for government approval. The Velkari faced worse problems. Their blob-like bodies required constant chemical balance adjustments that were monitored by medical sensors throughout their space. When the monitoring network began experiencing data corruption, hundreds of Velkari became seriously ill. Their doctors could not understand why the backup systems were not working properly. Senator Claire Martin sat in her new office on Earth, reading reports from human intelligence networks. As Minister of External Affairs, she now handled all contact with alien governments. The requests for help had started arriving 2 weeks ago. First came polite inquiries about technical assistance. Then came urgent demands for human engineers to fix critical problems. Claire's answer was always the same. Earth was no longer part of the forum and had no obligation to help. She reminded each alien diplomat about their previous statements regarding human technology being primitive and unnecessary. The irony was not lost on her that the same species who had mocked human abilities were now begging for human expertise. The cascade effect was spreading faster than anyone had predicted. Interstellar trade routes became chaotic without the navigation, algorithms that human mathematicians had developed. Ships got lost in hyperspace because their computers could not calculate jump coordinates accurately. Several vessels had to be rescued by emergency crews after drifting for days in empty space. The forum's unified currency system crashed completely when the economic stabilization protocols stopped working. These programs had been running in the background for so long that most aliens had forgotten they existed. Human economists had written the code to prevent inflation and manage exchange rates between different species' money systems. Without these safeguards, currency values fluctuated wildly. The Thraxian credit lost half its value in a single day. Velkari traders found that their money was worthless on Zephyrian worlds. Panic buying and selling created chaos in every major market. Several banks collapsed when their computer systems could not handle the irregular transaction patterns. Engineer Paul Adams worked with a team of specialists to monitor alien communications from Earth's new intelligence center. They had cracked most of the forum's communication codes years ago, but had never used the information for hostile purposes. Now they listened as alien governments struggled to understand what was happening to their civilization. Paul's team discovered that human contributions to galactic society had been far more extensive than even Earth's government had realized. Agricultural techniques developed by human farmers were feeding billions of aliens across hundreds of worlds. Medical technologies, created by human doctors, were preventing plagues and treating diseases that had once killed millions. Transportation systems designed by human engineers were moving goods and people throughout the galaxy. The removal of human expertise was like pulling support beams from a building. Each missing piece made the whole structure more unstable. Systems that had worked perfectly for decades were now failing in ways that alien engineers could not predict or fix. Captain Steve Rogers stood on the observation deck of the colony ship New York, watching the planet below. The world had no name yet, but it would soon become New Geneva, humanity's first independent colony outside forum space. The planet was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents that reminded him of Earth. Steve's ship carried 10,000 colonists and everything they needed to build a new civilization. Advanced manufacturing equipment, genetic banks for crops and livestock, and complete technical libraries were all stored in the ship's vast cargo holds. Within months, New Geneva would be producing its own food, building its own cities, and establishing its own government. The colony represented something important to humanity. It proved that humans did not need the forum to survive and grow. While alien worlds struggled with failing systems and economic chaos, human colonies would thrive using their own technology and expertise. Word of New Geneva's success spread quickly through human space. Other colony ships were already being prepared for departure. Mars was building new vessels in its orbital shipyards. The asteroid belt mining operations were producing metals and rare elements faster than ever before. Luna's factories were working around the clock to build the equipment needed for expansion. The Zephyrian Consortium made the first serious attempt to reverse engineer human technology. They had captured several pieces of human equipment when the withdrawal began. Their best scientists worked for months trying to understand how human computers processed information so efficiently. The project was a complete failure. Human technology was not primitive as they had claimed. It was incredibly sophisticated, using principles that Zephyrian science had never discovered. The quantum resonance amplifiers that made galactic communication possible were based on mathematical theories that took human scientists 50 years to develop. Similar attempts by other species met with the same results. Velkari engineers could not duplicate human manufacturing processes. Thraxian technicians could not understand human software architecture. The technology gap was much wider than anyone had realized, but it favored humans rather than aliens. The first minor wars began breaking out across forum space. Disputes that had been peacefully resolved for decades suddenly turned violent. The mediation systems that had prevented conflicts were no longer working properly. Human peacekeepers had been involved in creating most of the diplomatic protocols that kept different species from fighting each other. On Rigel 4, the Zephyrian Mining Guild clashed with Velkari trade representatives over shipping rights. The automated systems that should have resolved the dispute could not access the legal databases they needed. Within hours, the disagreement had escalated into armed conflict that left dozens dead. The Forum Council called emergency sessions to deal with the growing crisis. But even their meeting systems were failing. Translation programs that had allowed different species to communicate clearly were producing garbled messages. Voting systems that had worked for centuries were giving inconsistent results. The aliens could barely talk to each other, let alone solve their problems. As the galaxy descended into chaos, human ships continued their quiet expansion into unexplored space. New colonies were established on distant worlds. Trading posts were built in strategic locations. Military bases were constructed to protect human interests. While the Forum struggled with collapse, humanity was building something better to replace it. 2 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Forum, and the galaxy was falling apart. The Thraxian Empire was fighting a civil war as 3 of its colony worlds declared independence. Their military could not coordinate attacks because their communication systems kept failing. Ships arrived at battles days after they were supposed to, finding only wreckage and defeat. The Zephyrian Consortium had lost control of half their trade routes. Without human navigation systems, their merchant ships were getting lost in hyperspace jumps. Several valuable cargo vessels had disappeared completely, taking their crews and millions of credits worth of goods with them. Insurance companies were refusing to cover interstellar shipping, making trade between worlds almost impossible. Admiral Karen Lewis stood on the bridge of the battleship Independence, watching her fleet conduct training exercises in the Kepler system. The human fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These ships were built with resources from asteroid mining operations that no longer had to share profits with alien partners. They were equipped with technology that humans had developed in secret over the past 2 years. The Independence and her sister ships were faster than any Forum vessel. Their weapons were more accurate, and their shields were stronger. But most importantly, they could communicate and coordinate with each other perfectly. While alien fleets struggled with broken communication networks, human ships worked together like a single organism. Karen had been a junior officer when humanity first joined the Forum. She remembered the excitement of working alongside alien crews, sharing knowledge and building friendships across species. But she also remembered the condescension and dismissal her people had faced. The aliens had treated humans like primitive children who should be grateful for any scraps of attention. Dr. Ben Parker made the breakthrough that changed everything. Working in a laboratory hidden in the asteroid belt, he and his team developed a new type of faster-than-light communication. The technology was completely independent of the Forum's failing networks and could transmit messages instantly across vast distances. Ben's discovery meant that human colonies could stay in constant contact with each other and with Earth. While alien worlds became increasingly isolated as their communication systems broke down, humanity was more connected than ever before. Military units could coordinate across multiple star systems. Scientists could share research in real time. Families could talk to loved ones on distant worlds without delay. The new communication technology was also completely secure. Human engineers had learned from watching alien systems fail that centralized networks were vulnerable. Instead, they built a distributed system that could route messages through multiple paths. Even if entire sections were destroyed, the network would continue functioning. Captain Nancy Wright guided her exploration ship through the outer regions of the Vega system. The Starlight was humanity's most advanced scout vessel, equipped with sensors that could detect objects from incredible distances. Nancy and her crew were mapping star systems that no alien species had ever visited. The discovery came as a complete surprise. Deep in the Vega system, hidden behind a gas giant, Nancy's sensors detected something that should not have been there. Ancient ruins covered the surface of a small moon, and within those ruins was a structure that was clearly artificial, but not built by any known species. The artifact was a warning beacon, left by a civilization that had disappeared thousands of years ago. The message was simple but terrifying. A race of machines called the Devourers had destroyed the beacon builders and countless other species. They consumed entire worlds, turning planets into raw materials for their ever-expanding fleets. According to the beacon, the Devourers followed a predictable pattern. They would appear at the edge of a galaxy and slowly work their way inward, destroying everything in their path. The beacon calculated that they would reach the current galaxy within the next few years. Nancy immediately transmitted her findings to Earth. The message reached military headquarters in minutes thanks to the new communication system. Within hours, every human colony and ship in space knew about the Devourer threat. The news explained why humans had felt such a strong drive to explore and expand. Something deep in their evolutionary memory had been preparing them for this moment. While other species had grown comfortable and complacent, humans had pushed outward, always looking for new challenges and new frontiers. The first Devourer scouts arrived 3 months later. They appeared at the edge of Forum space near the Outer Rim territories. The machines were unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. Their ships were built from the remains of destroyed worlds, incorporating the technology of every species they had consumed. The Forum's response was pathetic. Their fleets were scattered and poorly coordinated. Many ships could not even communicate with their own command centers. The few battles that took place were one-sided massacres. Entire worlds fell within days, their populations either killed or captured for processing. The Velkari tried to negotiate with the Devourers, offering to share their shape-changing abilities in exchange for mercy. The machines showed no interest in bargaining. They simply began the systematic destruction of Velkari worlds, harvesting both the planets and their inhabitants. The Zephyrians attempted to flee, loading their most valuable citizens onto ships and abandoning their homeworlds. But without working navigation systems, many of the refugee fleets became lost in space. Some ships were found weeks later, drifting empty with no sign of their crews. The Thraxians chose to fight, but their military was already weakened by civil war and equipment failures. Their proud warriors found themselves facing enemies that felt no fear, showed no mercy, and could repair any damage faster than it could be inflicted. As world after world fell to the Devourers, panic spread through the remaining Forum territories. Governments collapsed as leaders abandoned their posts. Trade networks that had survived the earlier crisis finally broke down completely. Billions of aliens became refugees, fleeing toward the galactic core in hopes of finding safety. The Forum Council met in emergency session for the last time. The great crystal hall where they had once dismissed human concerns was now half empty. Many species had lost the ability to send representatives. Others had governments that no longer existed. The surviving members faced a choice that filled them with shame. They could continue trying to fight the Devourers with their broken fleets and failing systems, or they could do something that went against everything they believed about their own superiority. They could ask the humans for help. The message was broadcast on every frequency the Forum could still access. It was a desperate plea for assistance from the species they had once considered too primitive to deserve respect. The proud aliens who had dismissed human technology were now begging for the very expertise they had rejected. The message reached Earth within minutes of being sent. President Murphy read it in the Oval Office, surrounded by his military advisors and cabinet members. The aliens who had once treated humanity as inferior were now asking to be saved by the very people they had driven away. The question facing humanity was simple but profound. Should they help the species that had shown them nothing but contempt? Or should they let the galaxy burn while they built their own civilization among the stars? The Human Colonial Council gathered in the Great Assembly Hall on New Geneva. Representatives from 47 human worlds filled the chamber, their faces serious as they debated the most important decision in their species' history. The forum's desperate plea for help had arrived 3 days ago, and the galaxy was waiting for humanity's answer. President Murphy opened the session by reading the alien message aloud. The words were humble and desperate, so different from the arrogant speeches humans had endured for 20 years. The Zephyrians admitted their technology was failing. The Velkari confessed they could not fight the Devourers alone. Even the proud Thraxians acknowledged they needed human expertise to survive. The debate was intense and emotional. Some representatives argued for mercy, saying that innocent civilians did not deserve to die for their leaders' mistakes. Others demanded justice, pointing out that the aliens had brought this disaster on themselves through their arrogance and short-sightedness. Dr. Rachel Wong rose from her seat to address the assembly. She represented the outer colonies, the worlds that had been built by humans who had never known life under forum rule. Her people had grown up free and independent, owing nothing to the alien species that had once oppressed their parents. Rachel spoke with quiet passion about humanity's responsibility to preserve life, even among those who had wronged them. She reminded the assembly that humans had always been explorers and protectors, not conquerors and destroyers. Their strength came from their willingness to help others, not from their ability to hold grudges. Her words swayed many representatives, but the final decision was not easy. The vote was close, with barely half the colonies supporting limited intervention. Humanity would help defend innocent lives, but they would do so on their own terms as equals, not as servants. General Sam Hughes presented the military assessment to President Murphy the next morning. Human intelligence had been studying the Devourer fleets for months, using their advanced monitoring networks to track the machine's movements and analyze their tactics. The Devourers were powerful, but predictable. They relied on overwhelming force and superior numbers to crush their enemies. Their ships were heavily armored but slow to maneuver. Most importantly, they seemed unable to adapt quickly to new tactics or unexpected strategies. Sam's plan was ambitious but achievable. Human forces would not try to match the Devourers in a direct battle of strength. Instead, they would use mobility, coordination, and surprise to strike at weak points in the machine fleets. The key was to convince the surviving forum forces to work together under human command. Captain Greg Murphy received his orders while orbiting the human colony of New Boston. His ship, the Liberty, was not a warship, but a relief vessel loaded with medical supplies, food, and defensive technology. Greg's mission was to demonstrate humanity's peaceful intentions while showing the aliens what human technology could accomplish. The Liberty's arrival at the refugee station orbiting Zephyr Prime caused a sensation. The alien survivors had been living in overcrowded ships with failing life support systems. Human relief supplies kept thousands of beings alive, while human engineers quietly repaired critical systems throughout the refugee fleet. But the real surprise came when Greg's crew began distributing defensive technology to the alien ships. Human-designed shield generators and point defense weapons were freely given to former enemies. The gesture shocked the aliens, who had expected either abandonment or demands for submission. Captain Julie Stone commanded the first joint task force of human and alien ships. The mixed fleet assembled at the Centauri Crossroads, a strategic junction where several major trade routes met. Intelligence reports indicated that the Devourers would attack this location next, making it the perfect place for humanity's first real test. Julie had trained for this moment her entire career. She understood both human and alien military traditions, having served as a liaison officer before the Exodus. Her challenge was to blend different fighting styles into a coordinated, defense that could stand against the machine invasion. The Devourer fleet arrived exactly when predicted. Hundreds of mechanical ships dropped out of hyperspace, their dark hulls reflecting no light. They moved in perfect formation toward the Crossroads, confident that nothing could stop their advance. The battle began with a surprise. Instead of meeting the Devourers head-on, the joint fleet scattered in all directions. Human ships used their superior speed to dart between the enemy vessels, striking at weak points before disappearing again. Alien ships provided cover fire and helped rescue damaged vessels. The tactics worked perfectly. The Devourers found themselves fighting multiple small battles instead of one large engagement. Their coordination began to break down as human electronic warfare specialists jammed their communication networks. For the first time in their expansion, the machines faced enemies that refused to fight on their terms. The turning point came when Captain Nancy Wright led a squadron of stealth ships directly into the heart of the Devourer formation. Her vessels were invisible to enemy sensors, allowing them to plant explosive charges on the machine's command ships. The resulting explosions created chaos in the enemy ranks. Julie coordinated the final assault with split-second timing. Human and alien ships struck simultaneously from 6 directions, overwhelming the confused Devourers. The mechanical fleet that had seemed unstoppable was reduced to scrap metal floating in space. The victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time since the invasion began, the Devourers had been defeated. More importantly, the battle proved that humans and aliens could work together as equals when mutual respect replaced arrogance. In the aftermath, representatives from all surviving species met on the neutral world of Haven. Ambassador Katie Brooks returned to diplomacy, but this time she negotiated from a position of strength. The new agreements established humanity as a sovereign power with full rights to expansion and self-determination. The Forum species formally apologized for their previous treatment of humanity. They acknowledged that their arrogance had nearly led to the destruction of galactic civilization. Most importantly, they requested partnership rather than demanding dominance. The war against the Devourers continued for 2 more years, but the outcome was never in doubt. Human innovation combined with alien resources and manpower created fleets that could defeat any enemy. The machines were driven back to the edge of the galaxy and finally destroyed. Captain Nancy Wright stood on the bridge of the Exploration, vessel Pioneer, as it crossed into uncharted space beyond the galaxy's edge. Behind her, human and alien children played together in rebuilt stations, while their parents worked on new technologies that blended the best ideas from all species. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Fear was unnecessary when respect and cooperation guided relationships between intelligent beings. Humanity had proven their worth not through conquest, but through their willingness to defend those who could not defend themselves. The stars ahead held infinite possibilities for all species working together as equals. The age of human submission was over, replaced by an era of partnership among the stars. The galaxy watched in wonder as former enemies became trusted allies, united in their determination to build a better future for everyone.